Hello everyone. Today I will give you a presentation about my topic report. The experiences of my expat will be told and linked to the dimensions of Hofstede's model. I will talk about power distance, uncertainty avoidance, the working load in France, the language, and last of all, about the culture shock you can have while working in France. Have you ever dreamed about working or living in France? Here students can give their own input. France is known as the country of the croissants and baguettes, the city of light, the nation of love, or the place where language of the spirit is spoken. But the cultural differences may be bigger than you think. The power distance in France is very high. My expat experienced that her French bosses were more remote in comparison to her Irish bosses. The bosses were very direct with feedback, while the Irish bosses seemed to be more tender. When looking to Hofstede's model, it is very clear why this was so remarkable for my expat. The power distance in France is twice as high as the power distance in Ireland. The French are very structured and like to plan everything. My expat thinks that France is more bureaucratic than Northern Ireland. There was no room for new ideas and everything needed to be done like the bosses had told her. As she is a very creative person, she often had new ideas to make things more efficient or innovative, but the French did not like that. Thinking outside the box was not done in France. Everything needed to be structured and planned. You could not just ask permission for something if it was not planned in the week scheduling. In the cultural dimensions of Hofstede, we see that France scores very high on uncertainty avoidance, and Ireland scores very low. According to Hofstede, this is the reason why the French are more bureaucratic and always require structure and planning. The difference between the two countries is very big. The working load in France is very high. Firstly, my expat experienced a very high working load. This is normal because on a campsite the months June and August are the most crowded ones. It was expected that my expat would jump in and work 11-hour shifts if needed. For example, she woke up at 5 a.m. to open the campsite shop. She worked all day and in the evening she needed to work in the restaurant until 10 p.m. This is very tiring. In addition, the temperature was around 38 degrees every day. Hofstede's model describes this phenomenon very shortly. This is the result of a high power distance and a high score of individualism. Speaking the language properly is important when working in France. My expat stressed the fact that language is very important. We as Belgian people think that French is an easy language because we get it taught from the age of 11. For English people and Northern Irish people, French is not easy to learn. The pronunciation of the language is very hard for them. In addition, French is not an obligatory to learn. It's an optional subject. My expat picked French as an optional subject, but she felt like the courses did not prepare her enough to be able to communicate properly in French. This can lead to misunderstandings like, for example, je suis chaud instead of j'ai chaud. This is what she said to her 70-year-old boss. And notice that this is a mistake. Belgian children are taught at the age of 12 or 13 years old. But this can also lead to not to be able to express yourself the way you want to. The French also don't speak very well English themselves, according to my expat, and they're also not willing to speak English instead of French to make it easier to communicate. The culture shock. When working or living abroad, you always have a little culture shock. My expat told me you will always have a culture shock when working abroad. You never get to know a culture until you work and live in it. She spent a lot of holidays in France, but working there was something completely different. The day you arrive, your whole lives change. the food you eat, the climate you live in. This was a very big change for her, the climate, because in Northern Ireland you always have rain and it's always very cold. When she got there, every day was around 38 or 40 degrees. But also the people who surround you, you lose all your friends and family. Of course, you have social media to keep in touch, but it is different coming home to a place that you don't know. A lot of people underestimate these changes when they are willing to work or study abroad. Altogether, it's very obvious that French has a lot of cultural differences with other countries. They score very high on power distance and uncertainty avoidance of Hofstede's model. Also, the language is very important when working abroad. If you want to work in France, please take these differences in consideration, and I would like to thank you for your attention.